Chris Buskirk. It's principles and politics. The Seth and Chris Show is on now.
Happy Tuesday, April 11th, 2017. Welcome back to the Seth and Chris Show. We have a big show for you today, which is how we usually open up this show, by saying that. And you know why we do? Because it's a big country and indeed a big world and a lot going on, a lot of analyses to process, a lot of resentments to process.
And they shall be processed.
Yeah, they'll be processed. And I'm in a process of resentment right now. Bill, since Chris Buskirk saw himself fit to get here, a good 30 seconds before showtime, would you give him a cut of audio, a reminder, please?
Those who are tardy do not get fruit cup.
Those who are tardy do not get fruit cup.
No fruit cup?
No fruit cup for you.
But I was not tardy. As you admitted in your accusation, and you call yourself a lawyer?
It's a little thing called not showing up at work at 9 and then go. You're not a millennial where you show up at work at 9 on the dot and then go and put your stuff down and power up your computer and make the coffee and mosey on to your emails somewheres around 9:17.
Seth, you were right again.
Yeah, see?
Seth, you're breaking the fourth wall. People aren't supposed to know what goes on here behind the curtains.
The fourth wall. Good for you. All right. It's enough of that. It's enough.
Having fun with the soundboard.
We call that production value. We have two great guests in addition to Chris Buskirk, who's acting like a guest today. I'm kidding. I'm teasing him. Why am I all over your case today?
I don't know.
You showed up. You're here.
I'm going to go out. I'm going to come back in.
Well scrubbed. You're the victim.
The
You're the victim here. Brandon Weichert, who I tell you, I think is one of the most impressive new writers on the scene today. For years throughout the early parts of the 2000s, the aughts, if you will, when National Review debuted online, there was this whole new slew of writers that people were paying more and more attention to and saying, man, that guy's good. Man, that gal's good. And they became very big names over time, names like Andy McCarthy. Many of them are guests. I am pleased, Chris, I don't know if this was intended or noticed even, but with our project, our website, American Greatness, I think we're doing much the same all over again for a new generation of conservatives and conservatism. And I got to tell you, Brandon Weichert, post in and post out, he has a piece in two pieces this week in American Greatness, one called What's in a Doctrine, which is three pieces, my gosh, all about Donald Trump and Syria and Russia and what has been left to him by the Obama administration. And it's not a little. And Brendan has just been doing a great job. Brandon, sorry. He's going to be joining us on his piece, Making U.S. Foreign Policy Great Again, at the bottom of this hour. The smartest son of a gun on foreign policy I've ever been pleased and privileged to know is Michael Rubin at the American Enterprise Institute. He's going to be joining us on the Tillerson visit to Russia and the situation with Syria and North Korea as well. Aside from that, we always take your calls at 602-508-0960. Jeff. Welcome back to the Seth and Chris Show. I'm Seth Leibson. He is Chris Buskirk. It is a delight to welcome back to the show Brandon J. Weichert. He is a former Republican congressional staffer, national security expert, and producer and owner of the Weichert Report, theweichertreport.com. It's an easy website to remember. Has a great series of pieces over at American Greatness, Chris and my website. And the one that I wanted to talk with Brandon about is this piece you did a couple days ago, Brandon, Making U.S. Foreign Policy Great Again. I thought it was a fantastic piece. It's amazing to me, Brandon, just to open you up on this, how much, when you sit back and think about it, Barack Obama dumped in Donald Trump's lap. You know, for the first 8-9 months of the Obama administration, he kept complaining about having to clean up the messes of the past. My goodness, you detail a real interesting series and long list of problems that were left on Trump's lap by Barack Obama.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and you had a very nice opening for me, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, there's no doubt that Barack Obama basically left a steaming bag of excrement for his successor. And I'm sure he got a laugh because it wasn't Hillary, but rather his Republican opponents that took over. But no, it's. I mean, this is just scratching the surface, and I suspect that. I know there's a lot of talk right now coming out of people like Mike Cernovich about how there's a secret plan to send 150,000 U.S. troops to invade Syria, and I got to tell you, I don't know where that's coming from. I have contacts in the defense establishment. I'm very well versed in defense policy, and I'll tell you that that's just not accurate. And so I don't know how much deeper this goes. The solution is going to have to be obviously within Syria. It's not going to be from without, no matter how hard Russia or Iran wants it to be. So, you know, the Tomahawk cruise missile strike, though, was an excellent way for us to kind of assert our will and to remind the world that, hey, America's still here. You know, we're not going anywhere.
America's still here, and we're going to start unraveling this ball of mess that you described slightly more graphically than I will that was left. No, that's right. We're taking the kick me sign off our back. When we say something, we mean it.
That's right.
The sheriff is back in town. Law and order is back as an ethic. And when you look at the detailed list of problems, my goodness, you know, one of the things I remember early on, oh gosh, it must have been right around the inauguration of Barack Obama in 2009, someone I actually like a lot was Ari Fleischer, President Bush's first press secretary, was on a show and asked, so he was asked on one of the cable shows, what is the most interesting thing to you looking at the foreign policy of the incoming Obama administration? And Ari Fleischer said, well, he was given a huge gift that few presidents in my lifetime have ever been given, which is he will not have to deal with Saddam Hussein menacing the Middle East. That was a huge gift given to Barack Obama. Well, he squandered that gift, but you look at what Obama in turn has given to Donald Trump, all the way from Syria to Russia to North Korea, goodness knows, Iran, ISIS, and beyond. My goodness, Cuba. We're going to have to deal with the Cuba situation. Well, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, Latin America is neglected to our bad. It's hurting us that we're neglecting Latin America the way that we have. But to your point about the transition to Obama in 2009, remember, then Joe Biden, vice president the incoming vice president at that time, Joe Biden claimed that when Obama in his first 6 months in office was going to be tested as never before by the rest of the world. And to a point,
nice
he
memory,
was right.
Good memory.
Yeah, and to a point, he was right. But it wasn't just in the first 6 months. Those tests could have been the really end of the big test if Obama had passed any of them. But because Obama kept kicking the ball down the field, and he kept focusing, trying to cut back on the military and pull out of Iraq and not respond to the test, not rise to the challenge, it only compounded our problems globally, so that we had 8 years of failures instead of 6 months of trials in the beginning of the Obama administration, because he kept kicking the ball down the road.
Brandon Weichert, we're going to a break. You can stay a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we'll be right back with Brandon Weichert. For 8 years, the Obama administration vacillated between not doing anything and not doing enough. From Iraq to Afghanistan, Libya to Egypt, North Korea to Iran, Obama had his arms squarely wrapped around indecisiveness, Brandon writes. If nature abhors a vacuum, so does foreign policy and defense and security policy. We're turning that around. Brandon will explain why on the other side. I'm Seth. He's Chris. We'll be right back.
Of the red, white, and blue. Of my red, white, and blue. I know I stand in line until you think you have the time to spend an evening with me. And if we go someplace to dance, I know that there's a chance you won't believe.
Welcome back to the Seth and Chris Show. I'm Seth Leaps, and he's Chris Buskirk. We are delighted to be joined by our good friend Brandon J. Weichert. And a piece he wrote, particularly, has several great pieces up currently at American Greatness. This one, Making U.S. Foreign Policy Great Again, is going to be one for the ages, Brandon, I'm pretty sure. You write after you write in the wake of the Syrian attack that you are not celebrating like so many neocons seem to be. But nonetheless, in one strike, Donald Trump did make U.S. foreign policy great again. If you wouldn't mind explaining.
Well, I believe it was, it might have been Sun Tzu that said that inaction is still action. And so we were, for 8 years, deciding not to act.
It was Talleyrand.
Yes, Talleyrand. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Just throwing that out there.
Yes, thank you. My bad. But we decided not to act for 8 years, and we paid the price. Iran now is building a hegemony there. We've lost Iraq. It's now in the Iranian sphere of influence. Saudi Arabia doesn't know what to do. And now these are not necessarily regimes we want to be friends with, but we don't have a choice but to have good relations with. Our allies were running scared. Our enemies were riding high. And with one pinprick strike, we sent a message that we're not going quietly away. We're not going to abandon our friends, and we're going to stick it to our enemies when we can. And it's not just affecting the Middle East. It highlighted Russia's S-400, their new missile defense system that they claim can take out our F-35 and F-22s. It highlighted that, hey, we can take out areas that are defended supposedly by that system without ever having to fly an aircraft over. We can just use cruise missiles. The system can't defend against it. We've also sent a message to North Korea, which is now having China go in there. We've got 150,000 Chinese troops on the border. We've got a U.S. carrier strike group inbound to the Western Pacific. This is setting the table right now. The Russians don't know how to react. The Chinese are running scared. Assad is now put in his place, and the Middle East knows that America's not going away. We may not repeat Iraq. I hope we don't. But we're certainly not hitting the chicken switch. So I think this is a good thing for us.
Brandon, there were several audiences intended with this strike by
Absolutely.
that, right? Several audiences.
Absolutely.
Clearly, obviously, the prime one, Assad, perhaps other terrorist-sponsored states. Iran, I think, was a clear
Absolutely.
member of the audience in the front row. China, whom he was meeting with, North Korea, you named them.
We were also reassuring our friends.
That's the point. It was a two-stage question. I'm glad you got that. One of them was, and it said something to our allies, didn't it? And then the second question, or the second thing I'd like you to expand on is, as we're wringing our hands over Russia, I still think the most intractable of problems is North Korea. I truly do, and I don't know what we do from here.
Well, so I actually wrote an article in February for American Greatness that was not published because Julie Ponzi didn't think that it was up to snuff with what I had written previously, and I think she was right. But the thrust of the article was it's time to start getting tough with North Korea, and if we have to bomb occasionally some of their missile sites, we do that because I'm telling you what, the moment we start getting close to, as we are, inching close to a military action against North Korea, China is suddenly going to spring into action because they know that if we do end up having to go in militarily, we are under just the way we are, we're going to try to unite the peninsula under South Korea's regime, which means a united democratic Korea right on the border of China with likely large U.S. troops right on the border of China, and they don't want that. So China looks at it as cost-benefit. Right now, it's low cost for them to do nothing. But as soon as we start getting serious about hitting North Korea, you betcha they're going to try to preempt us and get to Pyongyang first. And I think Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago last week, I think he said to Xi Jinping, look, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it, and you're not going to like the way I do it. And I think that when the Trump grandkids were singing to Xi Jinping the Chinese national anthem in Mandarin, I think that was a signal. I think that they were signaling to international audiences that a deal has been made. And now we're seeing the fruits of that deal slowly taking shape on the Korean peninsula.
Brandon, I wonder if you might say a word to some of the Monday morning quarterbacks or perhaps the Sunshine Patriots who over the weekend were saying, well, one cruise strike, one avalanche, one tranche of tomahawks does not a consistent foreign policy make.
Yeah, well, Well, first of all, I would say he's only been in office for 90-plus days.
Yeah.
I mean, give the guy some time. Second of all, one small pinprick strike like that at an airfield in the middle of nowhere in Syria, look at how it's moving the board.
You bet.
Look at how it's moving the board. And so what I would say is, as I said in the article, this wasn't a Clinton-esque Tomahawk cruise missile strike where he launched the missiles at some camel in the desert, and that was it, and he called it a day after that. This wasn't a repeat of George W. Bush. Trump's not vowing to rid the world of tyranny. This wasn't a repeat of the Obama retrenchment policies of pulling back from everywhere so that we can have, little boys using little girls' bathrooms in America. This was very modestly reasserting American dominance without going into the bleeding out of nation building. We haven't, and we're not even talking about that, not seriously, thank God. It's just we're sending signals. This was not unlike the Christmas Day bombings that Nixon engaged in during Vietnam. Nixon's not a neocon. Nixon was a realist. He was signaling. He was sending signals. That's what this is. That is good geopolitics, especially for a time now when America is having so much economic problems and so the world is kind of going through this still recovery, quote unquote, of the recession. We can't do these imperial endeavors. We're doing reasonable, healthy forms of what Henry now refers to as coercive diplomacy, merging carrots and sticks to get nations to act a certain way they otherwise would not.
I like that, Brandon, and I like that phrase. I like the way you used it in your essay. There was a lot attributed to various moments of the Reagan presidency that were described as signaling and ultimately helpful in moving Gorbachev, the Soviet Union, to crack and fall and bow to us. There's one that this reminded me a little of, and it doesn't get a lot of attention anymore, but I do think it was part of the wall, or part of the narrative. Early on, end of 1981, first year, first term in office, Alexander Haig, Ronald Reagan made mention of a possible NATO lobbing of missiles over the Soviet Union. Caspar Weinberger retracted, and there was some back and forth over this. But they sent a signal that they thought maybe they might want to engage in this. Yeah. And a lot of people, retreated in shock from that statement. But boy, the threat is not the action. This was the action, and it seems to me there may have been a little of that here.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing.
Foreign policy virtue signaling, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what this is all about. We're not necessarily about always invading. It's about putting the threat out there. It's a form of deterrence or alternatively compellence, however you look at it. But either way, it works. And this is how the language of international diplomacy is power, and how you exert power is integral to getting your way.
Nicely put, Brandon Weichert. Please keep writing. I promise I'll tell Julie to loosen up on you a little bit.
No, she's great.
I know. Great. We kid. Brandon Weichert. Folks, you want to check his stuff out all the time. Thank you, Brandon, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon. You want to get in on the conversation with Chris and me? 602-508-0960. A lot more coming up.